is Offbeat, podcast that helps you to transform your career aspirations into reality. With your host, Adnan Sohail.
Hello everyone, thank you very much for coming back on Offbeat. Today's show is very much special because this is the first show of year 2020 and a lot of people are in the process planning and setting up their goals for 2020. So what happened in the past, how was 2019, our previous year? Just forget about that. If you had some bad memories or bad situation, how to come out from that situation, this is what we are going to talk in today's episode. With me today is a very, very fantastic guest, Sophina Rajah, a coach, a consultant. Over 9 years she has spent here in town in Dubai. Before that, she born and brought up in UK, where she has worked with a lot of multinational companies as well as with the government organization. Her core skills is to improve the people and processes inside the organization. And as a coach, when someone is having any difficult situation, how to come out from that difficult situation, this is exactly we are going to learn today from Sophina. So thank you very much, Sophina, for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
People ask this question a lot of time. Let me jump into the situation and understand what is resilience.
Really important question that we have to ask ourselves, especially in today's climate, when it comes to both working for organizations and working for yourself as an entrepreneur or even as a freelancer. Resilience is probably a very key ingredient, I think, across the board for all those different sort of target audiences, if you'd like to put it, that I've just mentioned. Particularly because there's nowhere in life where you don't benefit from having resilient and having a strong backbone. There are work from home mothers, there are stay-at-home mums, there are entrepreneurs who are starting out for the first time, there are C-suite executive leaders in organizations, there are top leaders who are sitting right at the above as chairmen and CEOs. And I think right from the top to the bottom, right throughout, whichever level you're looking at, even the janitor that you might say hello to when you grab your morning coffee in the morning on the way to work, is very important that resilience is embodied and sort of embraced by everybody for various reasons. And obviously we'll go on to talk a bit more about that now.
Is this something we can identify that these kind of people should learn or be resilient, and this is the group of people which should not be, or this is something for everyone?
I believe it is definitely something that everybody can take benefit from, and there's a huge advantage. It's not something that you're either born with or you're not. It's something that's very much learnable, adaptable, and it comes mainly from having a growth mindset. And I think one of the, we'll go through sort of the key elements of what makes up resilience, but ultimately, to be able to demonstrate resilience and have it actually mean have it take on its strengths within what you're trying to do, whether it's survive in a corporate demanding job or run a business by yourself for the first time, or manage the multiple kids at home when you decide to take a career break and to be a stay-at-home mum. I think everybody absolutely has many key gains to benefit from when it comes to embodying resilience. And this is, these are learnable traits. These are things that we can learn to adapt and apply within our day-to-day lives to help us get the maximum productivity, but also peace of mind that we're doing our best without sort of breaking ourselves. We're trying to push ourselves and bend ourselves slightly, but we're not trying to break ourselves.
Is this something which people can learn by reading some books or just watching someone is doing, or it's a more kind of practical skills that they have to do? How someone can develop resilience?
I think there's a mixture of things. There's definitely not one just set of answers for any one person. I think it's definitely important to take into account that a person's natural ability to be emotionally intelligent, so their EQ tends to be slightly more in tune, more higher when they appreciate what resilience means to them. Also, having a growth mindset is very important, and it's probably one of the more critical ones, because whenever you're faced with adversity or challenge, you see things through sort of you shift your thinking and your approach to it, and how it's always the cup is half full rather than half empty. So you look for the opportunity within the challenge. There's also sort of the community connections that you have. So naturally, when you're built with sort of the strength in your mind to be able to find the opportunities and look for the strengths within yourself rather than focusing on how to fix weaknesses, you're looking at how can I sort of push myself to be a little bit more uncomfortable but actually grow within the same time. And sometimes this is down to building your network. Sometimes it's very uncomfortable, for example, to turn up at a large conference, for example, completely by yourself, not know anybody, and just walk up to people and start introducing yourself. That's a form of resilience.
That it's important for individual, how it is important for the organization or inside the organization. As nowadays, if I'll say that apart from sleeping, what we have lived in our own personal life, that's maybe very few hours. Most of our time is at our workplace. So at workplace, a culture of resilience, how it can be built?
Very good question, and it's a very interesting time to be questioning resilience within organisations today, because as you know, we're trying to get the most out of the least amount possible when it comes to both resources and actual. When we talk about resources, we're talking both about actual items and technology as well as people. You know, there's always try to do more with less, and with that, you need a resilient workforce. It doesn't just come about, you know, but by squeezing people to the end. You definitely benefit from investing in your people. There's, you know, not just telling them what it means to be resilient, but actually delivering on those behaviors and being a key leader. When I say key leader, it means actually, you know, being a person of influence and leading by example. Building a culture is rallying a group of people together so that they live and breathe by the same values as yourself. And if they understand the value of resilience and what it means to them, both in a professional environment as well as a personal environment, then they know that everybody wins. It doesn't just mean to sort of get yourself through a 9 to 5 and just survive the day. Like you said, we spend most of our waking hours within our jobs doing what we do to make our bread and butter. So it's really important that not only do we enjoy what we do, but we live by the certain values that we, you know, are important to us and that we can embody in our day-to-day lives. And these can be demonstrated by leaders across the organization, and it can cascade down right to middle management, junior level, and sort of entry level. And, you know, these behaviors and skills and beliefs, they can be demonstrated in day-to-day behavior. So we definitely should not discount how valuable it is to sort of carry out these behaviors in our day-to-day tasks and not just have it as sort of mission statements that are put onto the wall and people don't really take much sort of notice of that. They're literally just words on a wall. We need to live and breathe these values, which in turn will sort of, again, people will start to demonstrate these behaviors in real life.
Is resilience something which is a single skill or single piece of information to learn and to do and adopt it or practice it, or it is a combination of few things? How the process of becoming resilience work? What are the pillars of resilience?
It's important to remember that resilience is something that's not only sort of taken on in the mind in terms of in theory. It's not something you just read about when you look at sort of the endeavors that people started from, and how they've come from humble beginnings as such, and how they've built up and really, you know, used grit to sort of build themselves up from almost from nothing. Like they say, the rags to riches stories. It's not just about reading about these heroes and sort of listening to their podcasts. Well, it is, but it's also about going through certain, and it's interesting because the minute we face a little bit of adversity and challenge ourselves, the natural reaction is to how can I avoid that situation? But what builds resilience in you naturally is when you take on and face that fear head on, and you look for ways. Okay, you have a solution focused mindset, as in a growth mindset. And you know, there are different pillars. You know, they say there are 6 pillars, but we all have different the varying 6 different pillars to go by. I definitely quantify mine as a growth mindset, emotional intelligence, having a strengths-based approach. So tapping into what is it that I can bring to this situation that I'm good at and that in the past has helped me succeed in certain situations. as well as having the will to make decisions, effective decisions, and cope with the change. And change is very, very important. I mean, I work with organizations that actually work to address the culture of how to manage change, because change is literally the only thing that is constant. We know this. If it's not a restructure, it's a change in management, or there's a new service line. The economy and technology disrupts our ways of working, and when we go to work, where the days are gone where you're going to have a job for the next 10, 15 years. So we pretty much have to adjust ourselves and train ourselves to be able to cope with all of this. So I think having an approach to sort of managing change, making decisions, having again a high emotional intelligence, all of these components really, really help. But again, as I say, the actual the grit and the strength that comes from being able to build that resilience. Sometimes you have to face some tough times and to be able to bounce back. This is something that has to be not only mentored, and there's such thing as having a good strong network and community of people around you, but sometimes you really have to be in the deep end. You really have to get your legs stuck in the mud and figure out how to get yourself out of that. There's really no other way to learn and grow from it, and it's the same with failure. This is where resilience essentially comes from. It's learning how to bounce back from things that have taken you 6 or 7 stages back. Like, I made all this progress. It's very easy to say, I've tried and it didn't work. You try and you try again. This is what resilience is. It's building yourself back up and coming back stronger each time.
Important thing is this: a lot of people, they should build this skill. They should become more resilient. Now, when the individual is an entrepreneur also, so they are having a lot of different pressures. They have to handle the teams, they have to run the company. So how entrepreneur, they can become more resilient?
Being an entrepreneur is very, I'd say we're living in a climate where it's a very interesting time to be an entrepreneur, but it's also an incredibly challenging time, because everyone likes the idea of being an entrepreneur and running their own business. It sounds fancy, but it also, the prospects of a successful entrepreneurial business also are very, very attractive. So there's a lot of competition out there when it comes to whichever industry you're looking at. And I think the journey of an entrepreneur is definitely very much a roller coaster, at least at the beginning stages. I had the fortunate opportunity of running a business by myself in the UAE a few years back, and I can tell you it gave me a bit of a rude awakening, because on the outset it sounds very glamorous. You get to run a business, you get to be the face of a business, so you get to make key decisions at managerial level. But they come with their cost, they take it's very taxing, to say the least, at the best of times, because you're responsible for the bottom line. You're responsible for the business ticking over, and it's very easy for it to take a toll on your physical and mental well-being. But this is what makes resilience so very interesting, because building up that core strength and the ability to bounce back, as they say, and develop that mental toughness comes from being able to handle tough situations and navigate your way through some really tough times and decisions that you may have to make. And for an entrepreneur, it's all about making tough decisions.
A lot of people, they are unable to become resilient. The reason is this: they do not want to understand or identify that, yes, this is the problem. Now, there could be a lot of reasons that why people are reluctant to identify that situation. And especially one situation that's come is the matter of shame. A lot of people, if they are not having confidence, maybe the body, maybe the physical, or maybe the way to speak or something, they feel shame. A lot of younger students in the work at their schools or in their universities, and a lot of new employees in the workplaces, they sometimes feel that if I will be doing this, that's going to be a shame. Like, what people around me, they will think about me. So in that situation, they keep on doing some kind of mistakes. And my question, especially I want to understand from you, and this is going to be very much helpful for all the younger generation or anyone who is listening and they have same kind of circumstances, how to handle the shame resilience.
Yes, it's a touchy one because a lot of the time when shame resilience is actually the topic of discussion or the situation, and you find yourself actually um, a person may not actually want to admit that that's the case. Hence the name shame resilience. And this is definitely something that a lot of the youth can take sort of stock from in terms of learnings and being able to call on mentors, because they're very fortunate to grow up in the generation that we have now with so much resources and sort of support available nowadays online, and being able to contact people very easily in the age of the internet, etc. But also for those of us who are just crossed over from Generation X to Generation Y, we've come to a stage in our careers, probably when we're mid-career onwards, where we probably it's just dawned on some people that they've been doing a job but they're either unsatisfied or they're not as good as they thought they were, and it's just been a convenient spot for them to make their living. And the shame of shame resilience comes into it, because yes, they're sticking to something because it's a steady thing to do, but actually if going back and looking at the drawing board at what they actually want to do might be a case of, well, people might say, why am I doing this now? I'm X age, and I'm better off just sticking with what I'm doing. But then there's also the group of people who have gone from job to job to job, trying to find where they fit in the workplace, what it is that they're passionate about, what it is that they're meant to be doing, what their purpose is. It's very difficult for them to identify and really engage with what it is that they're supposed to be doing. And with that comes a bit of shame, because when you're past a certain age, there's almost this understanding or assumption that you should know what you're doing at a certain point in life. And the truth is that some people can be, doctors or scientists and live to the age of 30, 40, 50, having done that their whole lives. And then they realize there's something bigger than what they're doing. There's something else, there's a bigger cause. That doesn't necessarily come with shame. But if a person has gone from industry or sector to sector to sector over a course of 10 years or so, that may come with the attachment of shame resilience, that yes, I've been strong enough to go through and keep hold of a job, but there's never been any consistent pattern here, and that causes the shame to come with it.
And how important it is to be a mentally strong person in order to become more resilient? Is this mental situation weakness, it impact on the being resilient or not?
Nowadays there's a lot to do with practicing different techniques and making good use of the tools that we have available to us to develop the resilience that we need to overcome sort of the dangers of the shame resilience and the lack of resilience, so to speak. And I think mindfulness is an amazing tool, as like the things, even meditation is practiced a lot by some of the most successful people that we know in today's day and age in business. And there's a reason for that, because you have to sometimes just quieten that voice that's in your head. And the conversations that we have every day with people are going to be running on autopilot in the back of our minds constantly. But the most important conversation we will ever have is the one we have with ourselves. And that ultimately determines where our resilience comes from and how strong and how quickly we grow that. It's very easy for us to doubt ourselves. It takes one small thing, even if you've had an 8-hour very long day of a string of meetings, or a string of, you've had to present something to the board of directors, and you've been in a conference, and it's been a fantastic day, but there were maybe one or two things that could have gone better, or one or two things that didn't go to plan. It's very easy for that. Our natural inhibitions are to look at, why didn't that go well? It's like the conversation between a manager and an employee when they get given the appraisal. They get told about all the great things that they're doing, and out of 5 things that they get told, they're told, but you need to improve on these 2 areas. Instead of recognizing the 3 areas that have gone exceptionally well and thinking, how can I do more of this? They focused on, well, why have I not been told that I'm good at these, or what am I doing wrong there, and why does that need fixing? So, the mental agility and the mental strength comes from being able to see in a positive lens and having a positive based and strength-based approach to it.
For entrepreneur, what do you like to recommend? Any strategies, any tips, like what type of actions they can take? Like tomorrow they after listening this program, if someone is thinking that, yes, I want to make my business more resilient, how they can do it?
For entrepreneurs, it's a core ingredient to have. Absolutely, if you don't believe you have a strong sense of resilience already, then you're definitely going to learn it, whether you like it or not, when you take on entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
It's very important to take a step back and reflect, build a good community, have a great network of people who you can go to for advice, have a good community of advisors and mentors. And mentorship is fortunately becoming a more common theme nowadays. But in addition to all these things, sometimes instead of constantly hearing your own voice and hearing other people's voice, I think it's two key things I would say is definitely for entrepreneurs is be able to practice things like mindfulness, meditation. It just helps to calm your inner voice down and reflect and take stock of the progress you're making and the lessons that you are learning, because there are constantly lessons to be learned. Reflection is very, very important, whether that's done weekly, daily, monthly. It's important to take a step back and just be able to calm the noise in your head, write things down, journal. Gratitude is an amazing tool that's helped me personally and many people that I know, and help them move forward. But building a good support network, a good circle of people that you consider trusted advisors that you go to in times of, okay, so I may be making a mistake here, but let me use someone as a sounding board. All of these things, it's very important to keep in your sort of toolkit at the back of your sort of mind, ready to know when to pull out the right one, know when to be able to call somebody, but not necessarily in a panic, just to be able to talk things through and get a second or third opinion, but also to be able to write things down and perhaps take a step back, and the answers are there already. You just don't know it because you've got too much chaos in your head and you need to calm that voice down.
Sophina, you have worked with a lot of top tier companies. You have worked with the government. You have worked, I'm sure, with the leaders. So if I want to ask you that what you have found or learned throughout your career, what is the secret of success, if you want to advise to the people who are watching this program?
I'd say there's no real secret. I think there's something very personal about success to every single one of us. And that how an individual determines their own personal success is literally they've got their own key ingredients and they know what they are already. Personally, I've come to the realization, for me, success is living a fulfilled and happy life and giving something back to the community, because you never lose when you give something. There's never any loss when you're giving. And that fulfillment that you get from being able to provide and give back, whether it's in business, and provide something of value without being asked or without wanting something in return. There's always going to be time for business. Business is a transaction. You transact with a goods or service, with the form of payment. But sometimes giving the most valuable things is your time, your attention. And within that itself, you can give so much back to society and find yourself in a very fulfilling place, as well as being able to find success by doing what you love with the people that are with amazing people that you can learn from, and people that can learn from you.
And the younger generation, which is becoming now the part of workforce, whether they are the millennial or Generation Z, for them, how important it is to learn this kind of skills like resilience, having passion, mindfulness. If you can advise, like, what exactly they should do?
I think the youth of today are growing up in a very, very fortunate time and place, and in terms of business, economy, politics, and all sorts of different things. How important is it for them to learn all these soft skills, should I say, and resilience and emotional intelligence and behaviors? I'd say it's not only necessary, but it's kind of they're not going to be able to avoid it. It's going to be a definite part of their path and journey if they are going to make any significant sort of pathway for themselves. If they're going to sort of, if you get trailblazers and then you get people who just go on the steady path, and there's nothing wrong with either one of those people. But one thing is for sure is in today's day and age, things are different. Times are, as I said, technology, people and processes, and just being able to keep abreast of different trends and things that are coming into the world in terms of being able to apply them in our professional and personal lives is so fast. Being able to keep up with the scale and the scope and the speed of things in itself is going to be so important. There was a time where Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp was not a thing. They did not exist. Nowadays, they're essential to business. And if you decide to keep on to and hold on to the traditional way of doing things, then at some point, there's only certain that you will hit a wall. For sure, you will hit a wall. And in order to sort of go further, there's definitely going to be a need to embrace softer skills that are actually essential to today's ability to be able to climb any ladder, whether it's a corporate ladder, an entrepreneurial journey, running a family business, or, just being able to run a program or run a foundation or set up a foundation that's, dedicated not for profit. You will need these absolute, you will need these behaviors, these competencies, these skills to be able to do so with gusto and grit.
When you were growing up and today where you are sitting, when you just see all that picture in a single view, what kind of piece of advice you think today was missing when you were growing up, you were starting your career? Like if today you have to give that piece of advice to someone that, okay, yes, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to become successful in your career, I missed this part, and if I have received that information or advice or that coaching or some mentor stayed with me to tell me that thing that yes, you should do like this, you could have been a better version of yourself or more successful. So is there any piece of advice which you want to give to people?
I could sit here all day telling you about the thousands of lessons I've learned and what I would do differently, but that's the beauty of it. You look back and again, this is where reflection comes in. You look back and you actually pause and reflect on how I achieved certain things, and if I could have done things a different way, or the things I failed at. More importantly, the failure is where the big lessons are. And if there was one piece of advice I would give my younger self or any of the youth of today, it is start before you are ready in anything. I worked for, I've been fortunate to work for some amazing corporate companies, as well as, do start off small projects by myself. And there was always a sense of fear, and resilience is a really close to my heart topic, because I've had to embody it and sort of use that to reinvent myself to some extent over the past few years to be able to survive some tough times, again, personally, professionally, in all parts of life. And I would say that something that probably made things a little bit more challenging for me was the fact that I always thought that I'm not ready, or somebody of my age, is not doing these things and nobody's done it. And, if you're thinking it, then someone else is already doing it. That's the thing. That's how fast-paced of a world we live in these days. The chances are, if you're thinking of something, somebody has already thought the idea, gone ahead, executed it, built a business, and done whatever it is that you're thinking or talking about. So I would say definitely don't doubt yourself. Even if it means that you get your hands dirty, you make 100 mistakes in the beginning, absolutely jump in, do it before you are ready, make the mistakes. If it means that you're going to put yourself out there and you're worried, again, you're scared of coming across as somebody who does not know what they're talking about, or somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, that's part and parcel of, again, the lessons and the feedback that comes with it. That's the golden part of it, is that we see that if there's critique coming to us, we see that as, oh, they've got something bad to say about us. But if you look at any successful business person today, there's never a person that has not been critiqued. Steve Jobs was, he was a mind of mystery. He innovated the way we use technology today. He's left a legacy behind, but he was not an easy person to work with by any stretch of the imagination. If you've read his autobiography, if you've read any books about him, he was quite a challenging person to work with. But he made history. And if you doubt yourself, you could be depriving the world of a certain gift that you have. So start before you're ready, and just don't doubt yourself.
Great. A lot of good stuff. Can you tell us if there are any downsides of resilience also?
There's always a downside to anything, really. I think there's definitely things to be taken into consideration when it comes to what are the downsides of resilience. Um, when you're, for example, you're starting out, or whether you're starting out or not in a corporate job, or you're trying to learn things, sometimes we're not all fortunate to work for these great companies. We're not all fortunate to work for the Googles and the Facebooks of the world, where the culture is such that they're renowned for that. And sometimes we find ourselves on the opposite end of the spectrum, where we're working for awful CEOs or awful bosses. We've all been there, I'm sure. We've got stories to tell. And being resilient is one thing, and it's definitely a core ingredient that, like I said, anyone from the janitor to the CEO needs resilience to be successful and fulfilled in life. However, there's a line that you need to recognize as to when it needs to be drawn, because sometimes you're just tolerating certain things and certain challenges which are a bit unnecessary. Demanding workplaces are all too common these days. Again, they want more for less. Businesses will come along and decide to bring in consultants, funnily enough, to restructure a business, and they will strip away X amount of people and put in the half of the manpower to do twice the job. And the idea is that they're being paid a job, they're being paid a salary, they can get the job done. And sometimes, the work ethic is one thing, and I come from I have a very strong work ethic, but I also recognize very clearly when there's an abuse of power taking place as well, and that tends to still happen. Unfortunately, we see it in organizations all the time. And the resilience is one thing, but then having the abuse of power, it can impact on your mental health, on your physical well-being. And so resilience definitely needs to be something that, yes, you have it and you absolutely need it. It's core and fundamental to you as a person. But there needs to be a recognition as to when it's being abused. You need to be able to step away, draw a line and say, well, that's not okay anymore. I'm going to walk away from this because it's starting to take up too much of my time. The demands are too high. They're too unrealistic. I'm being disrespected. These are not norms of working. You've got to recognize when you're being resilient in one respect, but actually you're being taken advantage of in another. And so tolerance, you've got to try and understand what your level of tolerance is. Some people have a lot higher levels of tolerance when it comes to stress, and other people not so much. But stress is something that needs to be definitely handled and controlled effectively.
If you are having any questions, feel free to send us down in the comments. We will try and request Sophina if she could answer. And in case you want to just get in touch with Sophina, I will put her LinkedIn link down in the description. Feel free, get in touch if you are having your business, if you are an individual and you need to speak with an experienced coach. She'll definitely be able to help you out. We just started 2020. So any final piece of encouraging advice you want to give to people, how they can make their 2020 and coming year successful?
I think the best piece of advice I would say is just, again, start before you're ready. Do what you love. And if you don't know what you love, then go find out, because there's nothing worse than spending more than half of your life doing something, being plugged in like a machine, and looking back and being full of regrets. So figure out what your passion is, get in touch if you need help with that as well, and absolutely grab life with both hands, and enjoy and find ways to fulfill yourself and give back to the community. You absolutely never lose from giving back.
Thank you very much, Sophina. It's really a lovely talk with you. You contributed. We appreciate your time and all the knowledge which you share with us, and we would love to have you back in future episodes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure being here.
I would like to just conclude today's episode on the saying of Oprah Winfrey, and that is, where there is no struggle, there is no strength. If you want to become successful in your life, you have to face the difficulties, you have to cope up these situations. Like this, you will learn. Failures are not bad. That's the part of our life. what you have to learn, that's how to bounce back from the situation, and after that do something different so that you can become successful. Myself, my team, and all the amazing guests who come on our program, we wish you all a very, very happy new year 2020. We wish you a lot of success. Next week we'll be back with a new guest with a new topic. Till that, goodbye.
Thanks for watching this episode. If you like our content, please subscribe to our channel, press the bell icon for regular updates.